Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
Want awesome health? How about doubling your energy? With our free Awesome Health course, you can get a new video and lesson every single day for 84 straight days. The course covers everything from optimizing your digestion, nutrient intake, correct health issues, including weight, skin, energy, immune system, and so much more. The course could easily be worth $200 or $300 for, and yet it's 100% free when you go to bioptimizer.com. That's bioptimizers.com. Once you're there, just enter your name and email to get the first 3 phases of the Bioptimization report. You'll get the report immediately and begin getting your video lessons each and every day from there on in.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today, we're going to be talking about, yep, you know it, allergy season. And, like things like why is allergy season getting worse every year? What's going on with the allergist shortage? The 411 on immunotherapy drops, a practice that many people are finding relief with, and ineffective ingredients like phenylephrine. The good news is we have a wonderful lady here joining us today, Shani Bocian, who is the visionary founder and CEO of AllerMi, a groundbreaking telehealth startup based in San Francisco that aims to improve the lives of chronic and seasonal allergy sufferers with personalized prescription nasal sprays. Founded in 2021, AllerMi has quickly garnered attention and funding for its innovative approach to combating allergy symptoms. Born and raised in Palo Alto, California. I was going to say California. That's funny. Shani's family has a background in the medical field, and her father, Robert Bocian, MD, PhD, FAAAAI, that's an interesting title, is a professor of allergy immunology of Stanford University. Her father's expertise and passion for helping patients served as a catalyst for AllerMi's creation. Shani, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so pollen season's about to start here in California, and of course, shortly for everyone else around the world, it comes a little bit later. And there are just millions and millions of people that suffer from this condition, and they take all sorts of over-the-counter and prescription medication, and many of them actually hurt them, is my understanding. And you have some alternative solutions. So maybe you can explain a little bit of the history about how you got involved in this and why this is such a critical aspect of, feeling your best and living well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. When we think about allergies, we think about getting a little bit of sniffly, runny nose and some sneezing during a couple weeks during the spring. But that really couldn't be farther from reality. Maybe that's the case for some very mild allergy sufferers who are very strictly seasonal and have some tree pollen allergies in, April, May. But most allergy sufferers, and by the way, there are about 100 million people who suffer from nasal allergy or nasal inflammation. Most of them experience symptoms chronically and well beyond kind of the boundaries of the spring allergy season. And so the majority of this population, tens of millions of people, are suffering from symptoms like congestion, runny nose, itch, sneeze, and postnasal drip more days of the year than they're not suffering from those symptoms. And it's getting worse. It's getting worse for many reasons. Number one, the pollen counts in the actual kind of square inches of airspace are getting more intense. So we have more pollen in the air to react to.
Why is that? Because I hear all this green stuff that there isn't as much green matter in the world, but how can we have more pollen?
Well, we have more pollen because our climate is changing and temperatures are getting warmer, and the pollination seasons are more intensive and longer because of rising temperatures. And so that leads to increased concentrations of pollen in the air. And then in addition, pollen binds really easily to other pollutant particles in the air. So as air pollution goes up, pollen count becomes higher and more intense and stickier almost. So we have this huge population of people who suffer from symptoms for most of the year. It's no longer just spring allergy season. They're really chronic, and they need a way to treat their symptoms on a daily basis that's safe and that's effective. And so that's why we started AllerMi.
I see. So we'll avoid the whole climate controversy because there's a lot of
course.
That's a very political landmine, and our goal is to kind of provide relief for people as opposed to comment on political agendas. Let's talk about this inflammatory. So is it just pollen, or is it a combination of pollen and contaminants in the air that are contributing to the response that people are having, which essentially it's a hyperactive immune system response, if I'm correct. Is that accurate?
It's a hyperactive immune response when we're dealing with allergy that manifests as inflammation in the nasal passages. You kind of have to think about our nose as a filter. So when we breathe air in, all of the particles that are in the air get trapped by our nose, and then we are able to take cleaner air into our lungs. When all of those particles are trapped in our nose, so pollens from grasses, trees, and weeds, dust mite, animal dander, and other allergenic triggers, mold spores, cockroach, and when all of those particles, those little microscopic particles, are trapped in the nose, our immune system kind of mistakenly thinks that they're an intruder and then responds with an overreactive immune response. And when the nose has an overactive immune response, it results in inflammation and excess discharge. And we don't really know why this happens, but we think it's the body's way of defending itself against perceived infection or intrusion. And so the problem is that we breathe in these particles all day, every day, and our body is hypersensitized and hyperreactive to these, and it's a vicious cycle. Once you're hyperreacting to these all the time, you're in that constant state of inflammation. Your nose is going to inflame, and we see people with just this constant inflammation of the nose that doesn't go away unless it's treated with daily medication.
I see. So what are some of the common treatments that people go to find relief from these conditions?
So the most common treatment is oral antihistamine pills. So things like Claritin, Allegra, Benadryl is one of the older ones, Zyrtec, Zyrtec. Those are all the brand names for these oral antihistamines. And what those do is they essentially reduce the histamine response in the body, which reduces the severity of an allergic reaction. So it'll help reduce symptoms of sneeze and itch and allergic runny nose. The problem with that, and those are great medications, don't get me wrong, they're incredibly important for someone with allergenic triggers and allergic reactivity. But the problem when we're dealing with nasal inflammation, which is that really inflamed nasal passages that feel swollen and congested and produce a lot of mucus, runny nose, postnasal drip, that are itchy and sneezy, is that when you swallow an antihistamine pill, it absorbs through your bloodstream, and it is kind of released into the body from brain to toe. And we're trying to treat an area that's only a couple of square inches and that's very inflamed. Antihistamines don't have any anti-inflammatory properties. And so this area that needs to be treated isn't getting targeted treatment. So anybody who has anything beyond mild allergy symptoms is going to need something more targeted and localized to the nose in order to get effective relief of their nasal symptoms. So that's why, you have these moderate to severe allergy sufferers who take tons of antihistamines, but they're just not getting relief. And that's because they need something much more direct, much more targeted in the nasal area.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because I think a lot of people don't recognize that these defense mechanisms and the histamine response thing is to create, agents throughout the body to look at inflammatory invaders that could be disruptive to the function of the body. So what you're saying is essentially you're providing a nuclear bomb to the whole system, which is suppressing maybe some of the responses in areas that don't require that suppression and are not modified significantly enough for localized response.
Exactly.
That you can provide the relief. Is there any long-term consequences of using a lot of these over-the-counter and prescription medications that so many people rely on for relief?
Yeah, so for the oral medications, there really can be. I mean, again, when you're taking an oral medication, it's a systemic medication. And I mean, you use the term nuclear bomb, and you know, it's actually the opposite. In most of these cases, the oral antihistamine is too mild and it's too kind of
Mm.
diluted because by the time it's absorbed and reaches the nose, there's just too little of it to have any effect. And again, it doesn't treat inflammation, which is the root cause of all of these nasal symptoms. Um, and when you take a systemic medication for a long period of time, there can be side effects. There's side effects associated with oral antihistamines like weight gain, like nervousness and jitteriness, like body dryness and dryness of the mucus cavities. With the older kind of first generation antihistamines, there is evidence of increased likelihood of dementia. And so we really, when we're treating a localized area, like if you imagine you had a cut on your hand, you wouldn't take an oral antibiotic to prevent infection of that cut. You'd put antibiotic on that antibiotic ointment right on that cut itself. And so we like to think of the nose in the same way. The same goes for the oral decongestants, pseudoephedrine, phenylephrine. Phenylephrine is, being, I think, petitioned for removal from the market by the FDA because of lack of efficacy. But we see side effects from these ingredients too. You're taking an oral decongestant, it affects the cardiovascular system. We've seen incidences of cerebrovascular accident, also known as stroke, with long-term, prolonged use of oral decongestants. And so, again, just so much safer to treat the nose directly with topical medications.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. So let's kind of get into this. Why is there a shortage of information about what you can do alternatively for this? Like, why do people not know about other solutions out there?
No, it's a great question. I think, we go to the drugstore and that kind of sets the standard for us. We see oral antihistamines, oral decongestants, and nasal sprays. And, I think for most people, it's much easier to take a pill than it is to take a nasal spray. And so that's kind of morphed into the standard of care. Pop an Allegra, pop a Sudafed, and hopefully you'll get better. So that's been the standard. I don't think that there's been a lot of investment in the field of rhinitis and allergy because it's not fatal. It's really uncomfortable and it can be debilitating for your sleep and your brain clarity, your mental clarity, your concentration, your airway health, but it's not a fatal disease. And so we talk about it almost like the innovation in this area is the cycle has ended because the focus now and the investment now is in diseases like obesity and diabetes and heart disease and things that really warrant and need that attention. But then you're left with this population of sufferers who have a stuffy nose for years on end, who have really poor upper airway health, who are just neglected by the market and neglected by medicine. And so our goal with AllerMi is to increase information, kind of spread awareness that there are safer topical treatments out there that are better than things you can buy in the drugstore, and then just make access to allergy and rhinitis care easier. I mean, you alluded earlier to the shortage of allergists. It's true. There are about 3,500 allergists in this country, and then we have 100 million people who deal with rhinitis. And so obviously there's a big problem there.
Yeah, there's no way that they can get to all of those people. And even if they do, most people are going to go to their GP or their pharmacist, and they're going to get over the counter or prescription med.
Most people go to the drugstore and they self-treat, and you see it's like a candy store. There's like 50 different medications that are all different colors, and you just kind of have to guess what you think might work or what your mom told you might work and try it and then fail and then try another one and then fail. And so what we found, this is actually what my dad found in the early 90s when he was just starting out as an allergist, was that there's actually a protocol that works. It involves 5 different nasal sprays. You have to take them all in order to get complete symptom relief. But of course, taking 5 different nasal sprays is inconvenient and expensive and challenging, and nobody can do it. And so what we did with AllerMi was take what my dad had been doing in clinic with those 5 nasal sprays, put them all into one single formula, and then customize it so that it's more appropriate for each person's kind of unique symptoms and severity. And now we offer them this single nasal spray that contains all the medications that they need. So they don't need to go to the drugstore, they don't need to do trial and error, and they don't need to take multiple medications.
So I'm going to guess, but I want you to take this apart for our listeners. It would seem to me that there maybe are 5 varying treatments depending on the severity or the maybe the type of allergy response? Like, so is there like a distribution that different remedies go within families or types of inflammation, and then you needed all five in order to make sure that you got all your bases covered, and then you would customize that based on the proportional amount of allergies they have? Is that right? Or
Kind of. I'll break it down. I'll break it down. So there are 5 cardinal symptoms of rhinitis: congestion, runny nose, postnasal drip, itch, and sneeze. In order to treat all 5 of those symptoms, you need 5 different medications. You need a decongestant, you need an antihistamine, you need an anti-inflammatory, you need an anti-discharge, and then you need a moisturizing factor to prevent dryness and irritation.
Right.
So those currently are all available as single ingredient nasal sprays. You can buy an anti-inflammatory nasal spray, you can buy an anti-discharge nasal spray, you can buy an antihistamine nasal spray, and you can buy a decongestant nasal spray, and then you can buy a moisturizing factor nasal spray.
It's a lot of sprays.
It's a lot of sprays, and obviously nobody can take 5. It's ridiculous to even assume that anybody could do that. Only the most devoted people who are spending a ton of money to try and get better can do that. You also have to space them apart. You can't take them right one after the other. It's super difficult and challenging. And then on top of that, the dosages of those ingredients, for some people, they're going to need to be higher, and for other people, they're going to need to be lower. When you're dealing with nasal spray, you're dealing with a pump dispenser, so it's always the same dosage that comes out every time. It's not like a pill you can break in half or take 2 pills. Like, the nose can only absorb so much liquid. So there's 2 problems: 1, single ingredient medication, and 2, non-optimal dosages. So at AllerMi, what we do is we get the full picture of a patient's symptoms and severity and medical history. We find out how severe is your congestion, how bad's your runny nose, do you get postnasal drip, what color is your mucus when you blow your nose, do you get nosebleeds, et cetera, et cetera. And then we create a formula for them that has the right ingredients for their symptoms at the right percentages, so the dosages are most optimal for them. They use it, they try it. It's 1 squirt per nostril twice daily. We see how they do after a couple weeks. If they're like, my congestion's better, but my nose is still running, we'll adjust their formula. We'll increase that anti-discharge so that they're getting better relief of those symptoms. And it's just this ongoing cycle where we're able to work with people to create this perfect nasal spray for them.
I love the customization. That's a total breakthrough. How is it that you've been able to kind of jump past decades of the industry and provide a personalized, easy to use formula? So how did you come up with this, and how did, what are the ingredients involving? Are they drugs? Are they chemicals? Are they herbs? Like, what's in the AllerMi's formulations that makes them so unique?
So I came up with this based on what my dad had been doing in his clinic for 3 decades, which was prescribing all of those nasal sprays to be used one after the other. And I was like, Dad, let's see, let's combine these into one formula. Pharma's already looking at combining anti-inflammatory and antihistamine. Like, let's take it a step further and combine all of them. And it ended up working incredibly well, more effectively than taking them one after the other. And so he started doing that. And then with that, the idea of AllerMi came about, which is, okay, we have this single formula, that's customizable. Let's make it accessible to everyone everywhere. And these are active pharmaceutical medications. We don't use any natural ingredients except for xylitol, which is a sugar alcohol. It's an alcohol-free base formula, so it's not drying and irritating. And then we use these 4 active pharmaceutical ingredients in addition to the xylitol, which are anti-inflammatory, antihistamine, decongestant, and anti-discharge. And so you get a magic formula that relieves all of your symptoms when you combine them into the what. And the real goal with this is, let's make it easy for people to treat their rhinitis so that it's just like brushing your teeth. You take your nasal spray when you brush your teeth in the morning and then again at night, and you never need to think about your symptoms in the middle of the day. And for a lot of people, that's completely life-changing and revolutionary.
What kind of medications are in there? Like, is there any contraindications? Can you take too much, or can you take too little? How does the individual manage their dosages, and how would they determine if it's okay for them to take?
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on Masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at masszymes.com.
Yeah, so there are actually no medication contraindications with any of the drugs that are in the AllerMi formulas. We treat people with all kinds of pre-existing diseases. There are few conditions where we do not accept patients. So we don't take patients who have glaucoma. We don't take patients who are on immunosuppressive medications. And that's more so just about it being a telemedicine company and these being higher risk patients. And those would be the type of patients we'd want to see in person and have a really close, in-person relationship with if we were going to be treating them with nasal sprays because of the risk that's involved. So we mitigate risk in that way. But in terms of medication, there are no contraindications. And then in terms of dosage, AllerMi is safe to take twice daily, 1 spray per nostril every day. It can be used up to 3 times daily under supervision from our medical team and only for a very limited period of time. But we find that the vast, vast, vast majority, 98% of our patients do fine with twice daily use or less. Some use it once daily, some use it once every few days. And so the only way to really overuse it and abuse it would be to use it, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day, which we just don't see our patients doing or having the need to do.
That's really cool. So how do people get access to your company, and how does that whole business model works? Because obviously you're kind of bypassing the traditional way that people would access things in a retail environment or going online and buying something they heard about on Amazon. How do you go about providing this to distribute to people who are looking for relief?
So we have a website, www.allermi.com. You sign up for AllerMi, you go through a quick questionnaire. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes. You tell us about your symptoms. It's evaluated by one of the doctors on our team, and a prescription is created. And then we compound, which means mix in a pharmacy lab, the medication, and then ship it to the patient. And so it's just one more step than buying something on Amazon, which you have to fill out that questionnaire so that it's considered a doctor's visit. We can then prescribe. And, you have to qualify. You have to, show that you're the right candidate. And so it's really simple. It's really anyone who's purchased something from Hims or Curology or Apostrophe or anything like that has gone through that exact process.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that occurred I think one of the most positive things that came out of the COVID environment was there was a designation out of the federal government, I believe it was under the Trump administration, but that you could do telemedicine across the country, which opened up accessibility to physicians that, people particularly in rural areas had struggled, or sometimes in urban areas, it's hard to find yourself a GP, let alone a specialist, and to go through the referral process and all the costs involved. So is there a cost to the initial consultation that a person's doing, and that whole filling out the form?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, making telemedicine has been a total game changer in making healthcare more accessible. And obviously with the shortage of good, allergy care, having the ability to go online and get a consult from an allergist and get your medication there is really great. We don't charge a fee to see the initial, to go through the initial questionnaire. It's part of your monthly subscription fee. We're currently, for a limited time, doing a free trial where people can actually try their first AllerMi formula free. So it's only a $5 commitment that first month. And then, if you choose to continue, you move towards a subscription, and it's on a recurring monthly basis, and you can cancel or adjust the frequency of delivery at any time. We just want to make it easy for people. And also, it's a new approach to allergy care. We're combining medications in a novel way. Our physicians have been doing this in clinic for many years, but it's the first time that it's accessible to everyone. So we want people to feel comfortable and feel like they're actually able to test out this medication and make sure they're getting benefit from it before they commit. So that's why we structured it in this way.
That sounds amazing. And from a pricing standpoint, how would it compare to, say, going to, not including all of the doctor visits and time delay that could be involved in the price, and that, which is not insignificant for a lot of people suffering from those conditions. But how long does it take to go through the process and actually get a product in your hands to get the relief? And then what would the pricing be comparatively?
Yeah, so our first month is free right now, and then subsequent months are $35 plus shipping. If you were to go to the drugstore and buy 2 nasal sprays, you'd be spending more than that. So it's a much more cost-effective solution. And you can, from the moment you sign up and fill out that questionnaire, you can have your AllerMi in your hands like 3 to 5 business days later.
That's amazing. Wow, that's such a disruptor to the industry. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to be jumping all over this as they get the information. So with this company, like how did you create it? When did it get started? And it seems like it has a lot of promise.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, I'd like for us to lead the nasal spray category. I think we have a better product than anything else that's on the market, just given how many medication ingredients we're able to use and the customization capabilities. And then also just the care that we provide. We really offer our customers, our patients, white glove service. We hold their hands. We will correspond with them as many times as they need about technique and dosage and formula adjustments. And really have them feel like we care about them, because we do. And so I think that's something really unique that we offer, and that can really bring us to the top of this market. We launched the company in September of 2022 with a really small cohort, and then we've been growing steadily since then, and have tens of thousands of patients at this point, and several thousand 5-star reviews that really tell a story about how AllerMi changes one's life. You go from suffering to relief, and stuffed up congested nose all the time, to being able to breathe clearly with an open airway, and that's really life-changing for people.
Wow, that's radic. I have a couple of friends that suffer extensively from allergic responses. I'll be referring them over immediately.
Oh, thank you.
Very exciting. What are some other things maybe that you're aware of that allergy sufferers can do, especially in conjunction with their taking the AllerMi remedies?
Yeah, one of them is
they can do?
absolutely. One of them is keeping the nasal airway moist. Our nasal tissue, like the mucosa, the walls of the nasal lining are very much like our gums. What happens if you're really dehydrated, like the gums are dry and white, and if they get inflamed and you try to floss, they bleed and they hurt. So the nasal tissue is really similar. So keeping the nasal passages cleansed and moisturized, just like we do with our mouth, is crucial. And most people don't do that. So we always tell our patients, we provide a saline spray with every AllerMi order gets a free saline spray. And we say, use this every day, twice a day before the medication spray. If your nose is dry, take this in the shower with you, breathe in a lot of hot steam, and use the saline and cleanse and moisturize your nasal airway. It's just crucial to getting good results from the medication, but also just keeping the nasal pathway healthy and moist. That's super important. For people who have kind of strong allergies to airborne particles, we advise getting a HEPA filter airway, a HEPA filtered air purifier, to keep in their bedroom and run in their homes, especially if they have indoor allergens like pet dander, dust mite, or mold spore.
Which is like 50% of the homes of.
I'm sure, probably more. I mean, right, absolutely.
It's for mold. Just mold alone.
It's a huge problem. Dust mite is probably one of the most common allergens, and it's not a matter of having dust in your house. It's little tiny bugs that like to live in our pillows and our mattresses and our stuffed animals. And it doesn't even have to do with cleanliness. It's just mostly has to do with geography and climate. And they populate in these kind of fluffy areas in our homes, and they poop, and we breathe in their tiny little poop particles, and we're all allergic to them. And so we sleep terribly, and our nose is congested, and it's really terrible. So air purifiers, for people who live in dry climates, we recommend having a humidifier to keep that nasal airway moist. And for people who live in really humid climates, there's more of a likelihood of mold and dust mite. So we say a dehumidifier. What else? Keeping pets out of the bedroom if you have a pet allergy. Pets out of the bedroom, bathing them frequently, not allowing them on the bed. If you come in out of a high pollen day, take off your clothes, wash them in hot water, change quickly, leave your shoes at the front door, don't track pollen inside. There's a lot of environmental control measures, but at the end of the day, like we live in a pro-inflammatory environment. The way we eat and the way we exist, I think there's just higher levels of overall systemic inflammation that can manifest in the nose. And so you can leave your pets out of the bedroom and your shoes at the door, but at the end of the day, like it's really hard to control that nasal inflammation no matter what kind of environmental measures you take. Short of like moving to Antarctica or Siberia where there's no pollen season.
Yeah, they talk about that, the Antarctic effect, that the health markers of people that go down to Antarctica go up dramatically.
Is that right?
Largely because their immune system isn't subjected to all these inflammatory agents. It's a very interesting effect that happens in that environment. I'm sure there might be some long-term consequences. Short-term.
Fascinating. I didn't know that. I'll need to look that up.
I think a lot of people don't understand how much, I always look at the immune system from first the holistic aspect, that what is it being subjected to? And there's all sorts of types of infections and agents and allergens and these things that are collectively burdening the immune system at any one time. And airborne particles are one of the areas that and a lot of people just don't calibrate for. They think of an infection, or they think of, I don't want to get a cut, or brushing my teeth, or these type of behaviors. But it's so much harder to regulate, and especially for
totally
more sensitive. And so if we've got a third of the population in the United States that are suffering from that, that's probably a third of the world that's suffering from that. And that's significant. So obviously the business model makes sense. Is there any other tips for people who are suffering from these conditions other than obviously they want to jump on your site?
Yeah. I mean, we're dealing with a chronic disease. And so I think understanding it as a chronic disease in the same category as a disease like blood pressure disorders or cholesterol or epilepsy or whatever disease that requires daily medication in order to keep the symptoms away. That's how we have to think about rhinitis right now, because it's a chronic disease with no cure. And the safest way to manage it, to prevent it from getting worse, is with daily medication. For some reason, rhinitis just isn't understood as a chronic disease in the same way that other diseases are, maybe because it's not fatal, like we talked earlier about. But I think that's kind of the number one key here is, you have to take your medication, whether you feel symptoms or not, if you're a chronic sufferer, because that's you don't want to wait until the symptoms come back and then you take your medication. You want to prevent them from happening. And so we really encourage people who have chronic congestion, like you're going to take your AllerMi and you're going to feel better. You have to keep taking it. You're not going to feel better and never need to take it again. It's a medication that will last for 12 to 24 hours, maybe a little more if you're on the milder side. And it's just important to stay consistent. And then, I see the book behind you, the Nutrition Bible. People ask us all the time about the correlation between diet and allergy. And I think it's really understudied and under-researched. But one of the allergists on our team is a huge believer in anti-inflammatory eating. And I don't know if there's any proven correlation between nasal allergy and an anti-inflammatory diet, but I don't think it hurts. I mean, I think keeping an anti-inflammatory diet probably reduces overall systemic inflammation, which may or may not affect the nose. But I think that's also an area that can be explored.
Yeah, I think anytime that you reduce systemic immune system response, your ability to handle localized response improves. That's why most people who eventually die in old age die of pneumonia. In other words, there's a variety of diseases or cancers or things that are going on that your immune system is able to manage up to a certain point. Then as your immune system weakens, then you have the emergence of predominant issues. And so someone who's suffering from nasal issues, I think it's important to look at, you want some short-term relief for sure, but you also have to look at the collective pull on the entire system, which is also chipping away at that localized response. So the localized response is that's the area. Maybe it's a genetic weakness. Maybe it's an overload of toxins in that particular area. Maybe there's some other contraindicative factor that would require a significant amount of research. Could be your environment, could be your diet.
Yeah.
You want to kind of take action on all levels. And so elimination diets are usually very helpful, but also bolstering the immune system while simultaneously reducing the symptoms
Yeah.
is how we aggressively go after things that are compromising people's quality of life.
I think also, when we're dealing with obstructed nasal breathing and nasal congestion, the impact on sleep is astounding. I mean, sleep disordered breathing is an epidemic in our country. People with nasal congestion, by default, do not enter the deep sleep phases as deeply or as frequently as someone who has a clear nasal airway and is not mouth breathing does. And I mean, we all know the effect of a poor sleep on the immune system and immune response and our ability to fight infection and what sleep deprivation or poor quality sleep does. So, I mean, it's a vicious cycle again. You have this inflamed airway from whatever trigger. That inflammation sustains because once it's inflamed, it's hard to get rid of. You sleep badly, and then it's just, it's everything comes from sleep,
It's a downward spiral. And of
Yeah.
course, humans suffer from sleep disorders at an excessive level in America. America is the poorest sleeping culture in the world by
Yeah.
statistics, which, and a lot of that's blue light. And of course, when it comes to allergy response, a lot of people will be okay during the day, but if there's an inflammatory agents at home, they get home at night and all of a sudden they can't breathe or they have these
Totally.
problems. And that's a good indication that your environment is contributing to your response. And so you need to kind of take ends of the application and
Yeah. And then on top of that, when our bodies are horizontal, the nasal airway narrows. It's some like evolutionary response that our bodies have to being horizontal. We don't know why it happens, but that's why even if you have a dust mite free home or you don't even have dust mite allergy, but you lie down and you experience that nasal inflammation and congestion, that very well may be part of the reason why. And then if you have septal deviation, which I think 85-90% of people do, which is where your septum leans in one way or the other, any inflammation that happens on the side of the deviation is going to feel so intense because that nasal airway is already so small.
Wow, we covered so many things. Is there anything that we have missed on this interview? You're so clear and concise and understand this challenge so well.
Thank you. Thank you for asking great questions. It's been really fun. I think we covered most of everything.
Awesome. So where can people find your site? Is there social media? Is there and you got this amazing trial that's available for people. So we're going to encourage people to give that a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a website, allermi.com. We're on social with Get AllerMi, which is on TikTok, Instagram. We try and post a lot of educational content there. So yeah, I would welcome anybody to reach out. And if you have any questions about allergy or rhinitis, or you have chronic nasal congestion, I think we could make a great option to help.
Shani, this has been enlightening and clarifying for a lot of people. And I wish you and your company the best of success. It seems like you're providing a lot of relief for a lot of people, and it's going to grow exponentially. So I'm excited for you, and I'm excited that you can provide some relief for a lot of people.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. There's another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. I'm Wade Lightheart from Bioptimizers. If you or someone you love is suffering from a condition, take advantage of AllerMi's offer. I think you'll love it. Of course, it's available here on the show notes. Just click on the show notes and there you will click right to the website. Get that free offer. Take advantage of what they're providing and get the relief that you need. I'm Wade Lightheart from Bioptimizers. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care and have an awesome day.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.